Please check playlist for the full series.
Cross my heart and hope to die. Welcome to my dark side.
Please join us on Patreon for episodes weeks in advance. In the heart of the Saints tribal village, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Everywhere you looked, the locals exchanged eager glances, their gazes often settling on Broly. The stranger, as they had taken to silently calling him, was undeniably the center of their universe at that moment. In a serene ancient chamber, illuminated only by the dim glow of eternal flames, the elder Saiyan, his skin marked with the tales of time, stepped forward. He held a scroll, its aura shimmering with reverence. Every face in the room was turned towards him, every breath hushed. The elder's voice, gentle and raspy, resonated with wisdom. "Broly," he began, the words dripping with gravity. "The intricate dance of destiny has chosen you. My son, the fates have led you here." Broly's piercing eyes danced with tempestuous emotions, darting around the unfamiliar surroundings, his muscles tensing. "Moments ago, I was locked in combat," he rasped, his voice laced with frustration and confusion. "Now, I find myself in this enigmatic realm. What sorcery has brought me here?" From the shadows, Yamoshi, a figure of legend, emerged. His tone was soothing, a gentle balm to Broly's evident turmoil. "All shall become clear, my cherished one. But you must grasp this. Your presence here, now, is paramount. It is you, and only you, who holds the power to quell the raging storm of this relentless war." Broly's gaze flitted momentarily, recalling a revelation from his past. This was the war Shenron spoke of. The very one intertwined with the tale of the Super Saiyan God. A cataclysmic struggle between light and dark, good versus evil within the Saiyan race. However, unbeknownst to history, Shenron had gotten the history wrong. But this was not the dragon's fault. After all, he couldn't have known that the Namekian book of legends passed down for generations was a complete fake. But where was the original? In the heart of the chamber, a young Saiyan's innocent voice cut through the air, breaking the intense stillness. "Mama, who is this man?" he asked, his eyes wide with wonder and uncertainty. "Is he a Saiyan like us?" His query resonated with the unspoken thoughts of the gathering. Every eye, every soul, had been wondering the same. The elder's gaze remained steady. "He is the beacon of change, a bridge between our history and our future," he shouted. The excitement in his voice bubbled over. "He is the chosen warrior from the ancient scroll, the very embodiment of the prophecy. He is our last hope." Broly, clenching his jaw, his voice thick with emotion, interrupted. "I didn't ask for this destiny. I need to return to my timeline. Goku, Vegeta, they're in grave peril." As he shouted, he tightened his grip around the limp form of Gohan in his arms, a grim testament to the urgency of his plea. But as moments passed, faint whispers of doubt began to weave their way through the assembly of Saiyanas. "He's not truly one of our kin," a skeptical voice murmured, drawing hesitant nods from a few others. Another added, "How do we know his intentions? He could be like those rogue Saiyans allied with the Planet Eater." The chamber, which had once been filled with an atmosphere of revelation and hope, now simmered with uncertainty and mistrust. The balance of fate teetered on the edge of a knife. In the grand chamber, bathed in dim light and reverberating with tension, a defiant shout pierced the air. "No, Saddam!" A chorus of Saiyanas cried out in alarm. "Don't invoke that name." Saddam's face contorted with a mix of annoyance and disbelief. "What are you all afraid of?" he retorted, voice dripping with derision. Just as he drew breath to call out the forbidden name, a flurry of movement ensued. Fellow Saiyans lunged at him, with reflexes honed by a lifetime of combat, pinning him to the ground before the name could escape his lips. The room, heavy with anxiety, was brought back to order by Yamoshi's unyielding presence. "Remember," he intoned, his voice both a reprimand and a plea. "Our strength is forged in unity and understanding. We must lean on the ancient prophecies and trust their wisdom. Then, with a shimmering pride in his eyes, Yamoshi declared, "Friends, the legends were true. I've reached the pinnacle of Saiyan power. I stand before you as the Super Saiyan God." Gasps filled the chamber. A voice from the back called out, echoing the thoughts of many. "The one from the ancient scroll. You've truly achieved it." Without another word, Yamoshi's transformation began. The atmosphere grew heavy with energy as he radiated a vivid crimson aura. And yet, strikingly, his hair remained jet black, a testament to the fact that he was on the cusp of unlocking the entirety of the form's potential. The spectacle left the room in awed silence, every eye fixed on the magnificent display of ancient power. "I can't seem to piece it together," Broly admitted, a frown creasing his brow. "Shouldn't the Super Saiyan God form have hair aflame with a crimson hue?" Yamoshi's gaze fixed intently on the scroll as he explained. "The fiery red you speak of is a sign, an indication that the Saiyan has unlocked the raw, unbridled energy of the form. However, true mastery isn't in flaunting this power, but seamlessly integrating it into one's base state." "But how?" Yamoshi paused, an inkling of disbelief edging his voice. "Do you know of the Super Saiyan God transformation? It's a revelation to us, a recent discovery." What Yamoshi and the others hadn't grasped was that Broly was a being from a future where the realms of Saiyan power had been pushed beyond imaginable boundaries. For them, the Super Saiyan God was the pinnacle. For Broly, it was but a step in a longer journey. Broly, realizing the gravity of the revelation, replied with an underlying tone of melancholy. "I've witnessed it firsthand. Goku and Vegeta have not only achieved it, but have explored its depths. And not just them. Gohan," Broly's voice quivered, a hint of sorrow escaping. "My dear friend Gohan, not only reached that pinnacle but transcended it before his untimely demise." A ripple of disbelief spread through the gathering. "Preposterous!" cried out a Saiyan from among the crowd, his voice echoing the skepticism of many. Murmurs grew louder, the chamber now alive with animated discussions, debates, and sheer incredulity. Yamoshi stood in the dimly lit chamber, surrounded by curious Saiyan warriors. The murmurs in the room grew louder as Yamoshi's gaze settled on a tall figure, Broly, whose powerful presence seemed to overshadow everyone else. "Enough!" Yamoshi's voice boomed, silencing the chamber instantly. All eyes were now on him. The weight of his leadership was felt in that single command. The dim torches cast flickering shadows, making the room feel even more intense. Slowly, with a confidence that only he possessed, Yamoshi approached the younger Saiyan. "Broly," he began, his voice a mix of curiosity and caution. "You come to us with tales of futures, of powers that none of us have ever witnessed. We are Saiyanis, proud and mighty, but the things you describe, they are tales for children. Prophecies. Myths." Broly's deep green eyes met Yamoshi's. There was no hint of malice or deceit in them. "I understand your skepticism," he said, his voice calm yet resonating. "But the future I've glimpsed, the power I speak of, it's real. It's unlike anything you've ever seen." Laughter echoed from a corner of the room. "Surpassing a Super Saiyan God," a warrior scoffed, disbelief evident in his voice. "You take us for fools, young one." But Yamoshi raised his hand to silence the naysayer. His intuition told him there was truth in Broly's words, even if they sounded far-fetched. "Show us then. Show us this power you boast of." The chamber grew tense as Broly nodded. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes, centering himself. As seconds turned into minutes, a palpable energy began to form around him. The very ground beneath them started to vibrate, and cracks spider-webbed across the floor. An intense light, almost blinding, enveloped Broly, filling the chamber with a brilliance never before seen. It was raw, overwhelming power. Yet Broly stood, a picture of serenity amidst the chaos. But then Yamoshi sensed it. Danger. Broly's immense strength, even in its restrained form, was threatening to shatter the planet itself. "Enough!" he shouted. "Hold back. This guy, does he even know restraint?" Broly's eyes snapped open, the radiance subsiding. The room returned to semi-darkness, the warriors around, awestruck. "It's as I said," Broly whispered, his breath heavy from the effort. "The future holds power beyond your imagination. And the Saiyans are at the heart of it. Right up there, with divine beings." His eyes held the depth of the universe, shimmering with a promise of unparalleled power. "The power you're witnessing," began Broly, his voice deep and resonant, filled with a newfound might, "is not what you expect." However, before Broly could elucidate further, the elder, his eyes wide open in shock, interrupted. "My gods! This cannot be. A mere Super Saiyan transformation holding such force?" The elder's fingers twitched, recalling the ancient scroll he had studied. He knew of the legendary Super Saiyan form, yet the magnitude of the energy radiating from Broly was beyond his comprehension. "You've taken me by surprise, Broly," the elder admitted with a grudging respect. "But there's something I don't grasp. The scroll spoke of the Super Saiyan God form being far superior. How can you say that a standard Super Saiyan form overshadow it?" Broly's gaze remained steady, his confidence unshaken. "You're not mistaken. Typically, the regular Super Saiyan transformation pales in comparison to the God form. But for reasons I am yet to understand, my transformation defies that logic. My power in this state is far beyond the Super Saiyan God form." Yamoshi, having been an observant spectator up to this point, took a step forward, his voice dripping with both challenge and excitement. "Well then, Broly. I won't label you a liar. But let's put that claim you made to the test. Right here and now." The sun shone brilliantly over the horizon, casting long shadows on the desolate terrain. Two figures, both radiating immense energy, faced off against each other. On one side was the first Super Saiyan God, a title bestowed upon a chosen few, while on the other stood the legendary Super Saiyan, known in legends for his unsurpassed strength. Around them, a sea of Saiyan warriors stood in a mixture of awe and anticipation. This was not just a battle. It was an epic in the making. Whispers spread like wildfire, with every Saiyan having their own prediction. Who's the strongest? Who will emerge victorious? They murmured amongst themselves. The legendary Super Saiyan, known to many as Broly, stepped forward. He had an intensity about him, but there was a tenderness too, evident in the way he cradled Gohan in his arms. Broly called out, his voice resonating with power. "Elder, would you mind looking after my friend here?" The elder, a wizened old Saiyan with countless battles behind him, looked perplexed, eyes darting between Broly and the limp form of Gohan. "What on earth?" he exclaimed. "That young Saiyan's spirit has departed this realm. Why are you parading around with a fallen warrior?" Broly's emerald eyes held a glint of moisture, a stark contrast to the fierceness that everyone had come to associate with him. "I have my reasons," he replied, his voice quivering ever so slightly. "Gohan deserves to be surrounded by those who love him in his final moments. He needs to return to his family. And it's a promise I intend to keep." A hushed silence fell over the crowd. In this world of constant battles and endless power struggles, Broly's respect for a fallen comrade spoke volumes about the heart behind the power. The elder's gaze fixed on Broly for a long moment, deep in thought. There was a sincerity in Broly's eyes that the elder couldn't deny. The weight of the lifeless Gohan in Broly's arms seemed to be a testament to a bond that had clearly existed between the two warriors. Finally, the elder nodded slowly, compassion evident in his eyes. "Very well, leave him with me. I believe we have a resting pod suitable for him." The Saiyans around them were already in a frenzy of excitement. Rumors had been circulating for days, but now they stood at the precipice of history. Two ascended Saiyans were about to go head-to-head. The very thought sent shivers down many spines. Almost everyone believed in the invincibility of the God form. Without warning, the tension in the chamber became palpable. The two Saiyans, glowing with immense power, underwent their transformation. It was a sight both magnificent and terrifying. The chamber, which had withstood so many battles in the past, began to shudder and quake under their combined might. Cracks snaked across the walls and floor as the structure's integrity faltered. "Get out! Everyone, out now!" someone shouted amidst the panic. As the warriors scrambled to evacuate, the elder stood still, looking at the two titans with awe, the ancient scroll clutched tightly in his grasp. "To think," he murmured to himself, "that in all my years, I would witness such a moment. Generations have guarded this scroll for this prophecy, for this exact moment in time." As memories of his past flooded back, he whispered more to himself than anyone around. "Father, how I wish you were beside me right now." The sky above seemed to resonate with the gravity of the impending battle. Thunder rumbled loudly, and a sharp streak of lightning cut across the sky. The vast expanse of the battlefield was suddenly filled with a blur of movement. Yamushi, the first sane god, moved with such speed that it seemed almost supernatural. The surrounding sanes, all warriors of great prowess, couldn't even track his movements. Everything else pales in comparison. This was not just any god form, it was something beyond. Before anyone could even process what was happening, Yamoshi was inches away from Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan. He launched a punch with such force it seemed like an entire planet was hurtling towards Broly. Broly, however, stood unwavering. The onlookers could sense his confidence. He had faced this form before, numerous times. He believed he knew its ins and outs. But Yamoshi was no ordinary opponent. He wasn't just another Super Saiyan god. He had mastered this form in ways that even future Saiyans hadn't comprehended, choosing instead to skip ahead to newer transformations. With unwavering confidence, Broly moved, intending to block the punch with his palm. The impact point between Yamoshi's fist and Broly's hand seemed to become the epicenter of an intense energy collision. An eerie silence enveloped the area. It was as if time itself had paused, with not even a whisper of wind disturbing the stillness. But then, reality snapped back. Broly's eyes widened in realization, but by then, it was already too late. The legendary Super Saiyan was no match for Yamoshi's raw power. With an explosive force, Broly was sent hurtling backwards. While being propelled through the air, Broly managed to find his voice. "Would you look at that? He's even surpassed Goku's prowess with this form." Before he could say more, he crashed violently into the towering mountains surrounding the village. A massive cloud of dust rose, enveloping the surroundings and causing the very earth to tremble. The awestruck crowd of Saiyans erupted in a mix of shock and disbelief. "He's done it," some cheered. "That imposter got what he deserved. He isn't the one from the prophecy." But then, from the dust and rubble, a sound emerged. Laughter. Broly's laughter. It echoed, drowning every other sound, and causing the cheering crowd to fall into a stunned silence. Whispers began anew. "He survived that. How is it possible?" The battle was far from over. Broly, bearing visible marks of the earlier encounter, began concentrating, drawing from a power source deep within. It was time to go to the next level. As a powerful surge of energy began to envelop him, the onlooking Saiyans whispered among themselves, their curiosity piqued. They had never seen anything like this before. "What's happening to him?" one of them muttered. "It looks like the Super Saiyan form, but different, more intense," another observed. Broly's hair, previously golden yellow, now stood more erect, radiating with a sharper, electrified shade. Electric sparks danced around him, signaling his transformation into Super Saiyan 2. The Saiyans, being from a time when only legends of the Super Saiyan existed, were in complete shock. "Is this another level of the Super Saiyan?" a young warrior questioned, eyes wide in wonder. An older, more experienced Sana scoffed. "Even if it is, it's just an extension of the same form. How much more powerful can it really be? Especially against the god form which is the pinnacle of Saiyan's strength." Yamoshi, however, looked intrigued yet wary. "A new transformation," he mused aloud. "You've piqued my interest." With an inner voice he spoke to himself. "I had to use the ritual to achieve this form. But this guy is just doing it based on willpower. Is there a more efficient way that the scroll didn't mention?" Broly, with a newfound confidence, replied, "This is the next level beyond a Super Saiyan. I guess it's a little history lesson for you." The battlefield was filled with a tense silence, only broken by the heavy breathing of the two Zeno warriors. Yamoshi's eyes widened in disbelief as Broly effortlessly shut down his powerful attack. Broly's grin was unmistakable, and his confidence seemed to have grown tenfold. "You know, Yamoshi, I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of my true power," he taunted. Yamoshi's face contorted in anger. "You dare mock me?" he roared, launching a furious barrage of punches at Broly. Each strike was a whirlwind, intending to land with the power to break planets. The Elder, sensing the escalating intensity of their power clash, shouted in alarm, "Stop it, both of you." But his voice was lost amidst the fierce roar of their battle. The planet itself seemed to groan under the weight of their power, its very foundations quaking. The Saiyans, initially engrossed in the duel, began to notice the cracks forming on the ground, the violent tremors, and the unsettling energy radiating from the planet's core. The Elder, realizing the impending danger, mustered all the strength in his voice and bellowed, "Stop this madness now!" His cry resonated, breaking through the thick intensity of the fight. Both Yamoshi and Broly, their fists inches away from colliding again, halted abruptly, realizing the dire situation. They floated, panting heavily, suspended in midair as they assessed the damage around them. The very air was thick with tension and the sense of impending doom. Voices from the crowd rang out in a mix of fear and anger. "Have you both lost your minds? Do you wish to destroy us all?" Yamoshi looked around, regret evident in his eyes. Broly, equally affected, let out a deep sigh. "We got carried away." The Elder approached them, his face a mask of grave concern. "Both of you possess power beyond comprehension. Don't destroy what we are supposed to protect." On the distant planet, the sky was a mix of eerie greens and blues, a stark contrast to the lifeless terrain below. Every now and then, a powerful energy wave emanated from its core, signaling the presence of an overwhelming power source. Seated on an intricately carved throne, made from the remains of the countless planets he'd devoured, was Moro, the infamous Planet Eater. His long beard and horned figure added an ancient, yet menacing aura around him. His eyes, aged by millennia, but sharp as ever, overlooked the vast expanse of his dominion. Around him, warriors of various races bowed in submission, their loyalty earned through fear rather than respect. Among them were some Saiyans, whose faces were hardened and eyes devoid of the honor their race was known for. These were the renegades, those who, in their fear of Moro, had abandoned their pride and chosen to serve him. Moro, sensing the energy disturbance from the clash between Yamoshi and Broly, smirked, his long fingers caressing the armrest of his throne. "It seems the Saiyans have found new toys to play with," he mused. One of the renegade Saiyans stepped forward, his eyes never meeting Moro's. "Lord Moro," he began hesitantly, "the energy from that clash is unprecedented. It might pose a threat." Moro chuckled, a deep, haunting sound that sent shivers down the spine of all who heard it. "A threat to me? Interesting." He paused, his gaze piercing into the distance, as if trying to gauge the power from afar. "It's been ages since I've had a worthy adversary." Another Saiyan warrior, bolder than the rest, added, "There are whispers, my lord. They rumors that a group of Saiyanas went of seeking the myth about a Super Saiyan god." Moro's interest was now genuinely piqued. "Ah, the legends of old. I had almost forgotten. I remember that Saiyan. What's his name again?" "Ah, Yamoshi. He spoke about reviving a legend. I spared his life out of pity. After all, the old fool was running mad." Suddenly, Moro rose from his throne, his immense energy making the very air tremble. "It might be time for a visit. Perhaps this planet Earth has something more to offer than just sustenance." The scene transitions to the Saiyans, with Goku and Vegeta lying motionless on the immaculate marble floor of the Omni King's palace. Their bodies are bruised and battered, bearing the marks of the fierce battle they had just partaken in. Ethereal light floods the palace, casting long shadows that wrap around the still figures of Goku and Vegeta. further intensifying the solemnity of the Grand Hall. Perched upon his throne, the Omni King observes the scene unfolding before him, his typically playful demeanor now replaced by a serious and contemplative expression. The Grand Priest steps into the throne room, his movements tentative. On his shoulders, he carries the unconscious forms of Goku and Vegeta, bringing them before the throne. With a respectful bow of his head, the Grand Priest addresses the Omni King. "My lord, as per your instructions, I have brought Goku and Vegeta to you," he announces, gently placing the two Saiyans before the throne. The Omni King acknowledges the Grand Priest with a nod, his gaze remaining fixed on Goku and Vegeta. "Daishinkan, you may leave us," he commands. A moment of hesitation crosses the Grand Priest's face. He opens his mouth as if to speak of the Broly situation, but then seems to think better of it, choosing silence instead. The absence of any mention of Broly by the Omni King is not lost on the Grand Priest, and a flicker of confusion crosses his face. Nonetheless, he turns on his heel and exits the throne room, the grand doors closing solidly behind him. With the room now emptied of all but the Omni King, Goku, and Vegeta, the atmosphere shifts. The Omni King rises from his throne, descending the steps to stand before Goku and Vegeta, his expression softening as he contemplates the two fallen warriors before him. With a graceful sweep of his hand, the Omni King conjures a light that gently envelopes Goku and Vegeta,